To keep Sweden a thriving, stable nation, a place where everyone can live a rich, fulfilling life. To tackle the challenges of our time and accelerate the shift to true sustainability. To find solutions not yet imagined and build prosperity within planetary limits. Impact Innovation leads the way with pioneering innovation that explores, experiments and dares. Innovation that aims higher to realize and scale up groundbreaking ideas. Innovation that moves boundaries, redefining what's possible. Innovation that opens up to the world, to all the world. Purpose-driven innovation with a clear direction forward, strengthening Sweden as a nation of innovation in Europe and beyond.
If you want to move fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. But if you need to move both fast and far, this is the challenge of our time, and that is what Sweden's strategic innovation program, Impact Innovation, is all about. Accelerating a sustainable transition for global competitiveness and societal benefit. Welcome to this Sweden Innovation X seminar. I'm Jenny Engström and I'm your host today. We begin by zooming out. Volatility, polycrisis, geopolitical fragmentation are now structural conditions, not temporary setbacks. Traditional innovation models, project-based, siloed and short-term, are increasingly insufficient. Acceleration is needed, but in complex systems, speed alone does not deliver progress. Against this backdrop, the Swedish government decided to invest in a new generation of strategic innovation programs designed to address major societal challenges and support a sustainable future. The task of designing these programs was given jointly to the Swedish Energy Agency, Formas, the Research Council for Sustainable Development, and Vinnova, Sweden's innovation agency. Through this joint effort, Impact Innovation was born. Grounded in mission logics, systems innovation, and use of theory of change. Impact Innovation is designed as a bottom-up, ecosystem-driven innovation program. So in 2022, an open call invited actors across sectors to define shared missions and apply to form program offices, the organizational heart of each mission. In 2024, 5 impact innovation programs were launched, each with its own bold mission and together contributing to the overarching goal, accelerating a sustainable transition for global competitiveness and societal benefit. Now, 2 years into this long-term effort, we are starting to see early results and important lessons emerge. Impact Innovation is designed as a 10-year initiative. The early years are therefore not about final outcomes, but about building direction, mobilization capacity, and the foundation for system change. During this initial phase, the programs have produced their first impact innovation reports, capturing early results, insights, and learnings from the work so far. So with no further ado, let's get to know the 5 impact innovation programs more closely. Hello, Impact Innovation! Can you wave to me as well? Yep, you're there. Happy to see you here this morning. So, we are going to listen to your missions, and I will start with Net Zero Industry and Cecilia Ramberg. What is your mission? And Cecilia, you are muted, unfortunately, so we will start all over again. Let's see. Cecilia, what is your mission?
Thank you. The mission of Net Zero Industry is to ensure a competitive and resilient Swedish manufacturing industry with net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2040. The manufacturing industry in Sweden accounts for 1 million jobs and 30% of exports. This industry also accounts for 40% of Sweden's investment in research and development. Sweden is one of the world's most trade-dependent economies, and the manufacturing industry plays a large role in this by being integrated into global value chains. A competitive Swedish manufacturing industry within the planetary borders is an important contribution to Swedish exports, growth, welfare, and resilience.
Thank you, Cecilia. And now over to Swedish metals and Swedish metals and minerals. Lawrence Hooey, what are you aiming to achieve?
All right. Thank you. Yes, at Swedish Metals and Minerals, our mission is to enable a sustainable and resilient supply of metals and minerals for the societal transition. We are in a rapidly changing global landscape where access to sustainable and resilient supplies are crucial for Sweden and Europe's ability to deliver the green transition. We need metals and minerals for new technologies, for energy, mobility, digital infrastructure, defense applications, and so on. But we aim to enable a sustainable supply, providing improvements in environmental and social aspects of mining and metals production, increased recycling rates, improved material properties, including durability, recyclability, and all of these with fossil-free production chains. The EU is highly dependent on raw material imports that often come with significant trade risks or lack of environmental and social sustainability. We aim to enable a greater supply from Sweden and the EU to reduce reliance on imports, as outlined by the Critical Raw Materials Act. With our highly advanced industrial base and innovation capacity, we will play a key role in this transition.
Thank you, Lawrence. And now over to ShiftSweden. John Hultén, what are you shifting from and what are you shifting to?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you, Jenny, and good morning, everyone. So in ShiftSweden, we work with the future of built environment and mobility, two systems with profound impact on our economy, our ecology, but also on people's everyday lives. So our mission is to transform Sweden, and we want to do it fossil-free and resource-conscious into attractive and accessible living spaces for everyone. And we can't do that by ourselves, but what we can do in this program is to show how. And we will show how we can do that transformation in 100 places in the next 10 years. And we do so by focusing on 3 shifts. The first shift is about our built environment, where we want to go from linear to more circular processes. And the second shift is about our mobility, where we want to provide competitive alternatives to the private car. And the third shift is to integrate built environment and mobility, finding new solutions in the sort of in the connection between these two systems. So 3 shifts to transform Sweden.
Thank you, John. And then we shift to waterwise societies. And Magnus Arnell, what changes are you working for to enable?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for inviting us to this morning webinar. Yeah, Waterwise Societies has the mission of sustainable water for all by 2050, really to safeguard and provide water in good quality and sufficient quantity for the livability both of people and society, for the competitiveness of businesses and industry, and for the benefit of healthy lakes and waterways, as well as biodiversity. And this is really founded in the insight that water is a shared resource, a resource required not only for all life, as we all know, but also for all businesses and development of our economies. And we are already facing staggering issues related to too much, too little, and too dirty water, with increased floodings, heavy rainfalls, as well as longer and more frequent droughts. While we at the same time have to keep protecting and recovering the water quality of our water sources, because there is really no water quantity without also having water quality. So what we mean is that without handling the challenges of too much, too little, and too dirty water, all of this is at risk.
Thank you, Magnus. Shared resources, that seems to be somewhere to go when you are looking at SustainGov. Mariell, Juhlin, what are your ambitions?
Thank you so much for inviting us. So SustainGov starts from a simple but fundamental premise. If the public sector does not make a real difference to people's everyday lives, it has failed, no matter how well designed the system looks on paper. Today, individuals facing complex needs often fall in between the cracks of the system, and they are not personal failures, they are system failures. Our mission is to change that. SustainGov works to reform public sector governance, so it enables coordinated action around the needs of the individual across organizations, levels of government, and sectors. And the societal value we create is concrete and human. Earlier support instead of late interventions, simpler pathways instead of administrative burdens, and solutions shaped around real needs rather than institutional boundaries. So our breakthrough ambition is a system shift from doing things right to doing the right things. And by 2035, success means a public sector where system leadership translates into better outcomes for real people and where no one is left carrying the consequences of a fragmented system alone.
Thank you, Marielle. We have now heard about 5 ambitious missions, all designed with a long-term horizon in mind. But none of these missions has been launched in a stable world. Since the programs were launched 2 years ago, the external environment has changed significantly. We see a stronger emphasis on security and resilience in policy and public dialogue. And times less explicit focus on sustainability, be it in environmental, social, or economic. And I'd like you to reflect on this. How has this change in context affected your program and your mission? I would like to invite Cecilia, Magnus, and John to join me to discuss how this has perhaps influenced, sharpened your priorities, your ways of working, or have the opportunities or challenges you are encountering changed in any way? Cecilia, the differences in the environment, external environment, has it affected you in any way?
Well, yes, thank you. It has. It has changed quite a lot since 2024 when we started the program. And I think that decisions to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2040 have already been made in many of the large companies. They are now in the phase of analysis and concretization and implementation. But resilience, on the other hand, is up for decision at the board tables of many large companies right now. The discussion about how resilience should be strengthened is in full swing, both in the industry and in politics. And we have needed to adapt our mission. We see that net zero greenhouse gas emissions build both competitiveness and resilience. And with that adaptation, we stand even stronger.
Thank you, Cecilia. Magnus, has this affected you in any way?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as you stated in your question, the sustainability paradigm have somehow gained a little less attention over the last couple of years, and security and resilience increased. This has an impact on how we talk about our mission, but basic water is, as I said, really a basic resource, and critical infrastructure has in some ways become even more in focus due to this. And I think that businesses, both in Sweden, Europe, and globally, really now recognize that water issues is a core risk to their business and really essential for everything, and no longer can be disregarded. To build on what Cecilia said, I mean that this is part of the resilience that is now on the board tables and no longer can be viewed only as a compliance risk, but rather gives an innovation mandate in order to be able to develop the business. So, and we think that for our mission, it's a shift in the focus and why we do things, but actually it's similar things. The actions that we have to take to achieve the transitions is really largely the same, like protecting the quality and quantity of water sources, rehabilitating and secure our water infrastructure, and adapt our society to water-related climate risks. So by really doing that, by having a resilient supply of water and protecting our societies towards climate change, also gives a huge competitive advantage, both for businesses in general and thereby for society in these turbulent times.
Thank you, Magnus. And John, I would say that mobility issues are really on the table right now in the crisis we're seeing. So how has this affected you and your long-term program?
Well, I think the current energy crisis is a very good example of sort of a window of opportunity to even to emphasize the mobility shift even further. And we now see, and it's clear for everyone, that we really has to get rid of the oil dependency that is still very dominant in the transportation sector. And that is something that we see now developing on a daily basis. And to do that, we definitely need to electrify the transportation system, but we also need to do the shift toward a more transport efficient society with more public transport, with more focus on biking and walking, with building cities that are efficient from the beginning. So it really affects the way what we do and the possibility to do these shifts. But I would also like to address resilience, which has been in Sweden a very important topic over the past years. And for us, it's not only about concrete and hard stuff. It's also about the soft issues. How do we build societies where people trust each other, where people know each other? That is sort of the basic foundation of a resilient society in an occasion of war or crisis. And that is something that is very much in line with what we are trying to do and achieve.
Thank you. So long-term, still on the table, but of course being flexible to meet also the needs of today. But long-term ambitions are still there. Over the past 2 years, the core focus of impact innovation has not been on delivering isolated solutions, but on mobilization around these missions. Mobilization means setting Sweden's collective innovation capacity in motion, bringing together industry and the public sector, academia and civil society, and building the ability to act, learn, and adapt together. Importantly, mobilization happens at several interconnected levels. Let's start at the core. The core is the mission, and around the mission is the program office. This is where the mission is managed, direction is held, learning is enabled, and continuity is ensured. I would like to ask Mariell and Lawrence to join me to talk about how the program office in itself is a part of the mobilization. Mariell, how does your representation strengthen your mission delivery? You have got 17 different actors represented in the program office. How does this strengthen your mission ambition?
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. So to begin with, as you say, our program is actor-driven. The program office is run by 17 largely public sector partners from different levels of government, each with their own networks. This means that we already have a constellation with good networks into the public sector, which are, in fact, our target group. It also means that the public sector itself has taken great ownership of managing this public sector transformation that is part of our mission. And we also know that many more actors are knocking on the door and want to be involved. I think another unique thing about our program is that we ourselves in this program office work in a mission-oriented way. So we can speak out of own experience to other systems actors that we want to mobilize continuously to take part. We've been through various phases of walking the walk, from not understanding each other's language to building confidence to take a leap of faith and trust the process. And early on, we identified the need to create interventions that enable multi-level governance systems to interact around complex challenges, just from this experience also in the program office. So we have now, as part of our investment portfolio, launched a new kind of intervention, which we are calling change alliances, which are in themselves mimicking the setup of the program office, and that enables even further mobilization. So mobilization is really a capability that we continuously build as part of our program.
Thank you, Marielle. You are talking about multi-level representations that enables your mission. And Lawrence, you are referring to having the whole value chain in your program office. Please tell us more about that.
Well, in Swedish Metals and Minerals, we have 4 branch organizations that are engaged. Iron and Steel Producers Association, Järnkontoret, Swedish Aluminium, the Swedish Foundry Association, and the Swedish Mining Association, SPEMIN. And collectively, they cover quite a broad spectrum of our stakeholders in terms of industry actors. So that gives us a very strong base. And we combined, let's say, from the earlier programs, we had Metalliska Material, we had Swedish Mining Innovation. Now we've extended our value chain in this new SIP. So I think we've come in with a very strong idea of how we work together, and a strong outreach to all of the actors within these organizations and beyond. So in that sense, I don't think we started from zero. I think we had a base already to work from. I think that's been positive in our program office development.
Thank you. So ensuring multi-level, ensuring the whole value chain. Of course, this is also the core of a system innovation, being sure that we have all the actors that are needed to do the transition. Thank you. But mobilization in mission programs cannot stay at the core only. The wider ecosystem is built through calls, activities, projects, and learning arenas, where engagement grows and alignment around the mission deepens. In order to build engagement around your mission and to develop the ecosystems, I would like to invite Magnus and John to tell me more about how you do to actually mobilize within the program as well. Magnus, you have a membership model. Could you please tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, definitely. I mean, you describe a very strong position for the program offices initially here, and that's of course in some way true. But I really think that one swallow doesn't make a summer, and one innovation program does not make a transition. So it's really the actors of the systems that can perform and make the transition. So we want from the program office, of course, to support the actors and expand their room for transition. And in 2 ways. I mean, first of all, we have that membership model that you describe, where member organizations from a widespread sectors, both from municipalities and water utilities, businesses and industries, both the ones providing technology and solutions, but also the ones that are large water users. Agencies, regional authorities, civil society, academia, and others all contribute together with us to develop and set the direction of the mission. We have divided it in sub-missions and sub-goals that they have been contributing to describe. They also are involved in defining the pain points where the transition is somehow most needed, but also could be most impactful. And then we'll have a transition arena where we learn together about the mission and about the solutions. So that's about the membership models, but we also want, through our interventions, to support groups of actors to form what we ultimately want to see be self-sustainable groups that can not only collaborate, but also co-act to develop, test, and demonstrate system innovation in selected areas. And this is what we call transition labs in our program.
Thank you, Magnus. And John, you also have labs that are contributing to building this ecosystem. Could you tell us more about your labs?
Absolutely. So for us, it's really important to move from focusing on individual projects, which has been very much what we have done in history of innovation and research, towards more of working in sort of broader contexts, addressing broader issues from different perspectives, and really try to find the essence in system innovation. And system innovation is often requiring more competences, more perspectives in order to make a difference. So what we try to do is to mobilize researchers, municipalities, agencies, companies, non-governmental organizations in transition labs, where we address a theme or we address a specific place, like a neighborhood in a city or something. And then we try to work with that theme or that place from different angles, with different solutions, different innovations, and really try to build some sort of joint understanding, joint learning, and also try really to work with impact and how we can scale things, scale up, scale out, and scale down in order to make a change happen.
Thank you, John and Magnus. And apart from building an ecosystem, as Magnus, you were into as well, that we don't live in isolated islands. We are a part of a bigger world. So at the third level, mobilization is about shaping and contributing to the wider system. Mission programs engage with policies, standards, financing, and international agendas, building on existing initiatives, identifying gaps, and co-creating conditions no single program or country can establish alone. This work directly contributes to competitiveness by aligning Swedish innovation with future markets and enabling sustainable solutions to scale globally. Lawrence and Magnus, please join me. Lawrence, tell us more about product passes that you are working with, and RAMP. What is this?
Okay, RAMP and the digital product pass is the question. Okay, we have at the EU level that comes in this regulation for digital product passports, reporting the various environmental performance performance indicators on products all the way through from mining through to product. How that exactly is going to look in the end is I think open. We have a project that's designed to look at this digital product pass and understand what the implications are for the Swedish metals sector. And there's about 25 partners in this project who try and delve into the implications and see what opportunities exist for Swedish companies within this framework of having these type of standards carried through, so that you can see at the end of the day what the product you're buying, what's the environmental impact of this, or what's the energy use, or what's the CO2 emissions, or so on. How can we use this, say, to our benefit in the end?
Yeah, so directly focused on the EU policy level through these passes as well.
Yeah.
And then there is a project that is not your project or program. It's not your program, but you are still working with it, right? RAMP.
RAMP. Well, RAMP will come in at the end of the year. That's a new program that Vinnova is responsible for coordinating within the mining and metals sector. It includes some money from the EU in the program, but it also it's global. So there's different countries are engaged and they fund their own side of the projects. So it's a mechanism to allow for international projects to be built. I think there's 50, I don't know the details, of 50 different organizations funding this in the metals and the mining sector. So that is a really good opportunity for Swedish companies to work together in an international context, also outside of the EU. We often are focused on EU, but there's other places in the world where we can have very good collaborations and developments.
So being a mission program, it's very important to be connected to what's going on around the program as well, of course, to benefit from what's going on, but also see the opportunities. And Magnus, you have had a window opportunity when working with the EU Water Resilience Strategy, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, internationalization is, of course, a very important aspect for a program related to water. The challenges I mentioned about too much, too little, and too dirty water are generally global. We share them with many other countries, but solutions have to be implemented locally and are sometimes very context specific. So we, of course, want in different ways to improve the sharing of solutions and knowledge around these problems and possibilities to solve them. But there has been, as you say, a specific window of opportunity just as our program started. So last year, the EU launched something called the Water Resilience Strategy. That is a strategy for how to improve the water resilience throughout Europe. And we have got a quite prominent position initially here now towards the Commission to work with them with the implementation of the strategy. And we hope to be able to contribute even more to that implementation, and in the longer perspective, of course, for the solutions that we develop and demonstrate through our program in Sweden, that they can have a larger impact throughout EU, first of all, but also the world, of course.
Thank you. So now we have heard about mobilization on different levels, from the program office to building the ecosystem with the program, and also going out to the global context, making sure that we are relevant and that we can benefit from what's going out there, and make sure that we accelerate further. An important part of Impact Innovation's mobilization and transformation capacity is driven by how research and innovation projects are initiated by the programs and financed by the funding authorities. From a system innovation perspective, project functions together as levers when addressing different system dimensions such as technology, policy, infrastructure, business models, and behavior. Together, a mix of innovation initiatives and experimental project portfolio enables the movement and transformation of entire system rather than optimizing isolated parts. Now, let's take a look at a few concrete examples on what is actually going on within these different programs. And I would like to start with Magnus. Magnus, give us an example of what is going on within your program.
Definitely. And then I would like to lift one of our transition labs, one about water in arid farming landscapes on the island of Gotland in Sweden. They are gathering over 20 actors to work with these challenges around arid farming landscapes and how to get water and also do irrigation. And what I think is really fascinating about this lab is that they are combining, they're taking the best of existing solutions. This is, of course, a problem that has been widespread throughout the world, and they are learning from many parts and taking the best parts of what is already available and existing, combining that with developing new and the latest technology to do this in the most efficient way, and with policy development to actually be able to implement the solutions in the end. So, for example, they have looking at traditional dam technologies for storing waters under wetter winter periods with innovative irrigation technology. They are looking into drone technology and AI for predictive and efficient water use while irrigating. But then there is a very strong policy track in the program because some of the solutions that they are exploring would not be allowed to use in the way that they have to under the current regulation, and that has to be adapted for Sweden to be able to manage these challenges under a new normal when the climate change hits us.
Thank you, Magnus.
And this is an area, as I said, where we
you actually explain very well how the different system dimensions need to work together in order to make transition possible. Cecilia, could we have an example from net zero industry, please?
Well, yes, I've chosen a very concrete example. This year, Volvo Cars has launched the new model EX60, and in it, a new large structural floor component is cast in one piece with up to 94% of recycled aluminum. And the key is called mega casting. Compared to traditional steel floors, the new solution offers, firstly, 60 to 65% lower greenhouse gas emissions when using higher amounts of recycled aluminum. Secondly, strengthened competitiveness and resilience due to significantly simplified construction when hundreds of assembled components are replaced by one. And thirdly, the new floor makes electric vehicles more competitive. And the net zero industry funded project EFFECT has contributed to the development, and it is now being scaled up with more automotive manufacturers and the establishment of a Swedish testbed and competence center around the technology. So this is a way of learning how to work mission-oriented and speed up the transition towards net zero industry and more resilience.
Thank you. Recycle and accelerate change. Thank you. To present example from Swedish Metals and Minerals project portfolio, we are joined by Niclas Dahlström. Welcome. Metals and minerals are often associated with technology, industry, and materials, hard stuff. But you are head of social innovation, so you bring a different perspective. Please tell us more, Niclas.
Yes, and thank you, Jenny, for being here. Yeah, of course. I mean, just to make an underline from it, technical innovation is, of course, in many aspects, the key for us, but as well, social innovation is a critical enabler for us to reach our mission, which Lawrence told you a little bit about earlier. I will like to give you an example, and then on the right side, you just have some pictures from another very interesting project. But today we have 21 different projects, and we are investing right now about in those projects 100 million Swedish crowns, which is about 1/4, 1/5 of our current portfolio. But in the left there, you see Ebba, who is very involved in the Satajärvi Sami community near the iron ore mine in Pajala, just a dozen of miles, Swedish miles, north of the Arctic Circle. And they are running a project together with 3 mining companies, forestry industry, we have academia in there, we have other parts from the civil society, and we have the Swedish Transport Administration. And what they are really working with here is to reduce the accidents in a specific public road stretch where the mining company are by truck driving and transporting their iron ore product. And this has been so interesting because in the beginning of this kind of project and when they put together, it was like, what can we share can we live together? Can we actually be better with working with each other? And this is the second project, but now it's more projects member in it. And we see that when they listen to each other, when they feel and earn each other's respect, when they are testing different methods and ways to solve this, you really see great results. And in the end of the day, I believe John talked about trust earlier today, and trust is really the key for this kind of partnerships as well. So I believe the social innovation projects together, not beside from other projects, is very, very important for us, and we learn so much. We need attractive societies. We need people who really like to see all the impact, all the innovation within those different programs together, and that makes our society and our industry and our world actually better.
Thank you, Niclas. And this is really emphasizing the need for an innovation mix. And John, an example from you.
Absolutely. As I said in the introduction, one of our shifts we are working with is with the built environment, where we want to go from linear to more circular. And going to more circular, one of the most important things is to use the buildings that we already have, rather than tear down and build new ones. So in Malmö, in Rosengård, which is an area in Malmö, we have showed how we can transform an empty basement in a large-scale housing estate into a green meeting place where people in the local community can gather, can build trust to each other, and can contribute to less environmental impact by growing some of their food by themselves. So this is really a way to create more livable neighborhoods using what we already have, involving the local community. And I think it's a great example of how you can make a shift in a place with the people who lives there.
Thank you, John. And one more example, Mariell, please.
Yeah, thank you. So of course, there are many examples, but I've chosen one that I want to present. And the reason I've wanted to present this example is that it's evolved from a feasibility study to a full-on real-world experimentation in line with our mission. And at the core, it's about creating a safe and substance-free social center for people in socially vulnerable situations, particularly homeless people, people with substance use issues. And this idea was born through active involvement of the target group itself in workshops in new ways. And this identified the actual needs of the group, which made it possible for the authorities, in this case, the municipality and the region, and also civil society organization working with this target group, to actually starting to develop, can we actually meet the needs in completely different ways? And that's how this idea was born. And so far, it's definitely built a joint understanding of the true needs of the group, and also a trust between the different actors, not least the target group itself, which is so fundamental for there to be a proper service. And the next step is really to continue to develop in smaller collaborative settings, where visitors and professionals and civil society can continue to use the center as a kind of test bed for innovating around different kinds of practice that better meet the needs of this target group.
Thank you, Mariell. And with that, I'd like to thank our representatives from the Impact Innovation programs for their contribution today. You can find out more about their first 2 years in their respective Impact Innovation reports. And thank you to all of you. And now let's turn to our expert panel for additional perspectives and some guidance for the programs on the road ahead. I am very pleased to welcome our expert panel. Please join us today, Professor Alejandra Boni, Co-Director of Transformative Innovation Policy Consortium, also called TIPSI, and Philippe Larue, Senior Policy Analyst at OECD Mission Action Lab. We are so very glad to have you with us today. We've just heard from the Impact Innovation programs about how they have mobilized and grown their ecosystem over the past 2 years. And before we go deeper, what stands out to you from what you've heard so far? And starting with you, Sandra, how do you interpret this from the lens of transformative innovation policy?
Okay, well, first of all, Jenny, thanks for inviting us and for having the opportunity to listen to all this very good experience. I think, well, what I've heard is an example of really a transformative innovation policy. I could listen to a systemic understanding, which is interesting, no? How some of these impact innovation strategies, they perceive, no, the transformation of the system, no, from different angles and dimensions. They talk about technology, but also they talk about values, societal values. They talk about markets, users. So all these, in our understanding, no, in TIPSI understanding, all of that is incorporates the different dimension of the socio-technical system. And what they say is we need to transform all of them. So I think this systemic understanding is interesting. Also, I perceive the idea of mobilize different group of actors. So this is not an issue of just the public governments, but also it's an issue of bringing together different actors. They talk about water systems, the built environment at the end. So the idea of bringing together and mobilize the different group of actors in this also experimental way. They spoke about labs, so places where people come together and imagine and design intervention. We call pathways in our language, but ways of thinking how transformation could be possible. Identify potential changes, potential avenues for transformation. This is also something very interesting that I perceive from the different intervention. Maybe, well, they didn't say anything specific, but also I think the learning component, even it was not mentioned, but it's important. And this learning component happened, no, in these transformation labs, in these different moments of people coming together, diverse people, diverse group of stakeholders. This is also something interesting. So I think in general terms, I perceive these impact innovation stories as a stories of transformative innovation policy in our language.
Thank you, Sandra. And Philippe, in the language maybe of mission-oriented innovation, what have you listened to and what have you heard from the lens of mission-oriented innovation?
Thank you all, and congratulations on all the impact innovation managers that we heard. What strikes me most when I compare to what we hear, because at OECD in this Mission Action Lab, we spend a lot of time every day, every week, speaking with different types of missions in different contexts, different countries. What strikes me most in the impact innovation context is how you place system change at the core of the impact innovation agenda and the way you implement them. Because when we talk with others, they talk a lot about system change, systemic thinking, system innovation. But in the end, when you scratch the surface and you try to understand what they've been doing in reality, it comes down to we've done some call for proposals and we distributed some grants. So it goes from a wide agenda to something that is very tiny in terms of what they really do. Here, what I heard is that really system change in impact innovation programs becomes a reality from the level of the whole country, what I heard. Sometimes it's within a value chain, within a sector, minerals or the administration for SustainGov, to neighborhoods sometimes. So it's really, you really made system change a reality. At the core of that, something that is very important, as we have tried to document in our publications and research, is you need tools, specific tools, and notably a theory of change. And here we see, I was looking at the implementation report that you've just published of this impact innovation program, and I see how the theory of change are now taken very seriously. We've been following what you've been doing in Sweden since 2012-13 with the strategic innovation agenda, the strategic innovation program, and we've seen that it was there, but it was still a bit sometimes like a checkbox. So we've done a theory of change, yes, more or less. But now it really shows that it's at the core of the impact innovation activities. You really try to follow those theory of change. It's really underpinning your activities. So we really, I'm pretty very interested in we look forward to see what's going to happen with all that, and keep on working with you to follow and try to support as much as we can.
Thank you, Philippe. And I have another question for you as well there, because OECD often speaks about that mission programs has to move through different life cycle, and we need to have a life cycle approach in a mission-oriented program. And what we have read and what we have seen with the impact innovation programs right now is that the first phase, the first 2 years, has been about governance, building governance structure and building the program offices and mobilizing around the program. But Philippe, from your perspective, what characterizes the next phase? Now we are leaving the first phase. So what is characterizing the second phase, would you say?
Well, it's now all about, of course, implementing the theory of change. You have a nice narrative, you have a nice story. What are you going to be able, how are you going to realize those very high ambitions that we've seen? And for us, the key, what we keep on saying, and the message that we try to convey in our work is really the key aspect is how you are going to align the mission, what we call the policy mix, the package of interventions, of activities that you can support, that you can mobilize, and your theory of change. And what we see in many cases of missions is that there is really a discrepancy between, as I said, the theory of change and what the mission can really do. So you have to broaden the type of interventions beyond beyond research innovation. This is what we call the STI trap, for instance, the fact that those missions still remain confined to the research innovation arena, and they cannot try to effect different types of change than technological change. And what I heard here today and what I've seen in your implementation report is really that you go beyond that. It's about supporting skills, changing regulations, as we heard, standards, norms, mindsets in neighborhood. So really, it's very important to broaden at that stage, to broaden the type of intervention. The other thing is that you need to make missions a space for experimentation. If you are constrained to a few type of interventions, like again, call for proposal, that doesn't bode well for the future of the mission. So it's really about broadening beyond research innovation, and broadening the type of intervention, the type of support instruments that you can mobilize.
Thank you. And Sandra, what kind of capabilities will become even more critical now? You talked, for example, about learning, but there are many things here. What will be even more critical going forward for the programs, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think following what Philippe said, I think experimentation is a key. No? So that it's embedded in what the system innovation manager they spoke, but experimentation is a key. You have to try, you have to adapt. Also, you mentioned, Jenny, before, the changing context, no? Which bring tensions and new priorities maybe, and they have to face, and they have to adapt. So I think one of the key capabilities is this adaptation mindset, which is linked to flexibility as well in the way in which the mission should be developed. So adaptation, be able to learn and to understand what's going on the global, on the landscape level, as we call in TIPS, something that came from above, but also what is going on from the bottom up, from the local level, because these missions are embedded in local context, but at the same time they are receiving the pressure from the above. So this is another key capability. This be able to learn, to adapt, to understand what's going on, to also to adapt expectation, understanding better the pressures. So this is another key issue. Another thing, key capabilities is how I manage, how I deal with this different group of stakeholders. Before they mentioned trust. Well, trust is essential, but how I can involve and keep involving the wide group of actors that are necessary, to bring this systemic dimension, the different dimension of the system together, and that bring different group of stakeholders. So how I can deal with that, I think this is another important capability. Maybe having a better understanding of the system, I think is there, because they mention the different dimension of the system in many examples, but this is important. So these kind of capabilities, which are not maybe the traditional ones, are important to keep going these impact innovation policies, I think. Something like
and
that.
looking ahead, now there's a question for the both of you. If you are to choose 2 recommendations, key messages to the impact innovation programs each, when they now enter the next phase of the life cycle, what should they absolutely keep in mind? And I will start with you, Philippe.
Well, so I won't repeat what I said about this need for aligning the policy mix and the theory of change to really realize the theory of change in practice, but a need for a strong support office. We see that it's very good to have these ecosystems. They are wide, there are plenty of skills, competencies, they all represent a facet of the system change that you want to realize, but still you need a strong support facility, both at the level of the mission itself, and we've seen that with these program offices, also at the level of the overall initiative to promote learning between the different missions. That is very, very important, so they can exchange on the challenges. There are plenty of things that they learn that can benefit other types of missions. Also to harmonize some of those practices that work well. Something that is very important as well, I believe, especially for those ecosystem-based missions, which really rely on a high level of delegation, of devolution of some of those tasks to ecosystem actors, rather than just being confined with public authorities and funding agencies. What is very important for the state is to still maintain a level of ambition. Yeah. Because those ecosystems are very good for mobilization, for engagement, for involvement, but they, of course, run the risk of capture by incumbents and large or powerful actors. So it's very important that the state keep an active role to maintain the level of ambitions of those strategic agenda when they are implemented.
Thank you, Philippe.
Also very, very essential is learning, and I've seen that in your impact innovation program, for instance, with embedded researchers and developmental evaluation approach with experts that follow the evolution and the implementation of those impact innovation and reflect with the actors. So that is also very, very important.
Thank you. Sandra, 2 key messages from you.
I think don't forget the system transformation. So even if you are entering through one side of the system, technology, industry, whatever, don't forget the system transformation, and that brings different kind of perspective, actors, strategies, pathways, etc. And then experimentation, which is about learning, trying, learning by doing. If it's not working well, if you have a failure, it's okay, because this is part of the experimentation. I know that is not very common in public administration, but it's part of the experimentation. So keep experimenting and keep trying different pathways, towards this transformation. And don't forget the main goal, which is the transformation of the whole system.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you so much, Philippe, for your recommendations and your insights into how we are going to get impact innovation moving forward with greatness and in capabilities. Thank you. We began today with a simple question. What if we need to move fast and far at the same time? What we've explored together is that it's not achieved by choosing between speed and collaboration, but by building systems that can move forward together with direction, learning, and endurance. This is what mobilizing for breakthrough innovation really means. Impact innovation is not only about delivering new solutions. It's about building Sweden's collective innovation capacity, the ability of society to create, receive, scale, and sustain transformation over time. And when direction is shared and effort is aligned, we don't have to choose between fast and far. We can do both. With that, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you to all of our speakers, and I wish you all a great rest of your day.